Howard, a new season. What can fans expect differently from referees this season?
Yeah, exciting time, new season. Always some changes to consider, and it's good that we have an opportunity to lay out what those are. Most of the changes this season are focused around maintaining momentum in the game, dealing with delaying tactics, and those kind of tactics that people kind of get frustrated by, that when the ball goes out of play, it doesn't come back in as quickly. So we've got some new tools for the referees to use around restarts at throw-ins, restarts at goal kicks. The referee can now identify the moment when they feel the team is unnecessarily delaying that restart, and will count down to the player taking that restart. Say you've got 5 seconds from this moment, get the ball in play. If you don't, then that restart will flip. A goal kick will become a corner kick, a throw-in will go the other way. Some other changes too. For example, when a player's been substituted, they now have only 10 seconds to leave the field of play, and if they don't do that, then the player coming in can't enter, even though the player coming out still has to leave. And that substitute coming in can only enter after a minute, or at least a minute, because it's actually the next stoppage when they can enter. Some of the things as well, we've got a trial happening around goalkeepers going down, claiming to be injured. They may or may not be injured. We suspect that on many occasions they're not. They're going down to break the flow of the game, break the momentum, or to create a tactical timeout for the teammates to go over and receive some instruction. Now, if that happens in the Premier League, where a player goes down, a goalkeeper goes down claiming to be injured, in most cases that will lead to one of that player's teammates having to leave the field of play for a minute, a consequence, if you like, for that action of going down. So all intended to make the game fairer, and also to ensure that we maintain the tempo and the flow of the game in the way that I think most fans want to see.
So we might see fewer 100-minute matches?
Yeah, so far the evidence that we've had is that the amount of time that goes on the board at the end of each half is lower than it previously was. We're back to the days of 1 minute at the end of the first half and 3 at the end of the second half, because substitutions are taking less time. Players are not taking as long on throw-ins and goal kicks, and also injured players having to leave the field for a full minute rather than 30 seconds is acting as a deterrent, and they're not going down as readily. So hopefully that will be a direction of travel that continues. Player welfare is always important, so we'll always take care of players who do need treatment for any suggested injury, but hopefully the deterrents will continue to work, and the flow and rhythm of the game will be there, and that will benefit the game.
And unless it's very hot, the games will be halves rather than quarters?
Yeah, 2 halves of football. 30 degrees or above will lead to a cooling break, which will be 2 minutes in the Premier League, and that's right, because players' welfare is paramount, but less than that will continue playing the game as it's always been played, 2 45-minute halves.
Is there anything from the World Cup that you've looked at as referees, things that perhaps didn't go well in terms of decision making, interpretations of the laws of the game that you perhaps won't be applying in the Premier League?
I enjoyed the football in the World Cup. I thought it was great, and of course the World Cup brings these officials in from all over the world, which in itself is a challenge. They're using the changes to the laws of the game for the first time, so they've got no blueprint from elsewhere. And I think what we saw from most of those changes was a positive. We saw the game with flow and tempo. There was quite a high bar for penalising contact, which is what we value here as well. So some things to like. Of course, we saw a tournament that had 104 games, and trying to be truly consistent across that number of games is challenging. It's the same here in the Premier League, 380 games across 10 months. And there'll always be individual situations that can split opinion, or there might be some errors made. And that undoubtedly will be the case in our competition and every competition throughout this forthcoming season. But it was a good opportunity to see how some of those law changes were applied and how beneficial they were.
I mean, we saw one moment Egypt had a goal ruled out against Argentina when the play was rolled back, it seemed, for an eternity. Is that something you wouldn't do in the Premier League?
I can't say we wouldn't do it for sure. The officials on the day formed an opinion that it was a clear foul, and that was the start of the attacking phase of play that led to the goal being scored at the other end, and the officials made that judgment in the moment. And we've seen some similar examples in the Premier League. I remember a situation where the ball was out of play at the start of an attacking phase of play, and the judgment has to be made by those officials in that moment. All I will say, focusing on what we're doing, is that we like to apply a light touch approach to VAR. We like to reserve it for those situations which are clearly and obviously wrong, where there's an injustice that needs to be rectified. I think that's the direction of travel that many in the game are taking. I had meetings with colleagues in UEFA fairly recently, and it's clear to me that UEFA and other governing bodies in Europe, and I think elsewhere, are of a similar mind. VAR is great when it works as a tool to rectify clear errors that can be rectified quickly. We really want to continue doing that. We've seen some improvements in the way that we use it. We're always striving to use it in that way, minimum delays, but a tool that rectifies something that's clearly wrong. And as a referee, I would have certainly liked the opportunity to rectify clear errors that I made in the moment, ones that I had to live with that were much impactful. And I think more and more we're seeing it being used in that way, and that's certainly our objective for this season going forward.
We did see a very high-profile case of Donald Trump intervening to get following Balogun's red card overturned. Then the disciplinary process took hold and lifted the immediate suspension. Is this an issue that you might face in some forms here? You get a lot of pressure externally from clubs, from high up about decisions, and is that a big challenge to deal with?
Integrity in football is so important. We live in a world where conspiracy theories are abounding based on nothing, no fact, no evidence. And of course, when something like that happened and there's some external pressure applied, it's not helpful because it creates a space for those conversations to happen. Processes need to be put into place and followed for the integrity of the game. We know that suspensions can be appealed in certain competitions, and if that process is in place, then it's right that it's followed. And certainly what we saw wasn't helpful from a refereeing point of view, because referees go out there and make the decision honestly based on what they see in the moment, and that will certainly be the case in the Premier League. What
was most unhelpful, having the integrity of the referee being undermined as well as his decision making?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the referee thinks much more about it. They do their job on the day. The VAR does their job on the day. I just think that the fact that it was admitted post-event that some pressure had been applied and some process implemented, and I don't know the ins and outs of it, but at least what we know, gives fuel to those people that think that those sort of conversations happen all the time, and I'm really confident that they don't. And anything that gives people energy to kind of like fuel conspiracy theories around refereeing decisions is not helpful for us.
And how problematic is that threat facing referees in terms of the abuse, people undermining them? It can be, well, particularly violent in some countries. The fact that critiquing decisions can go too far and lead to actual personal safety issues.
Yeah, of course it can. I mean, here in England, most of that kind of hateful behaviour happens online. From my own personal experience, from speaking to colleagues, most of the personal interactions with football fans, members of the public, is really positive. People, when they meet you, want to know about the job that you do. They're inquisitive. They're intrigued by the role. A lot of that stuff happens online, but sometimes it extends beyond just hateful commentary, but it goes into something more of a threatening nature. And of course, we have to take those things seriously. We have to work together to ensure that the officials feel safe, that they are safe, that their families are protected as well in that respect. And it's not only officials, but players are in a very similar boat as our managers. So we have to work collectively together to ensure that people who post those sort of things behind the anonymity of a keyboard are found and dealt with robustly. We have to deter this sort of behaviour. The officials, the players, they're going out there to do a job to the best of their ability, honestly, impartially, in the referee's case, and you're doing your job and you're getting that sort of level of abuse or threats online. It's certainly something that should not be tolerated.
Are you having to put more safety in around referees now?
On occasions, it's not routine. It's not something that we face too often, thankfully, yet, and I hope it doesn't get to that stage, but there's been occasions where we've needed to take practical measures to ensure that an official feels safe, that their families feel safe as well. And we recently surveyed all of our officials to get an understanding of what gets posted on social media, because it is mainly online, how it impacts them personally, individually, how it impacts their families, and what we can do collectively together to protect them from that, but also gather information and provide it to the authorities when we need to ensure that the next steps are taken in identifying and dealing with those perpetrators.
What were the main findings of that survey of referees?
That it's on the increase. that this sort of behaviour, even if our officials don't go searching it, and they really don't and shouldn't, sometimes it filters through other means. What I'm kind of concerned about is if that sort of thing continues, then all of the work we're doing to try to encourage more people into this game of ours as officials, and that benefits me or whoever's in my position in years to come with a greater kind of like number of people to choose from, more competition, could be tarnished. Officials play an important part of the game, and we need to encourage more people to get involved for the good of the future of the game. And if people feel that this is a consequence of officiating, that you're going to be abused online, then they might think twice about getting involved in the first place.
And you're providing more mental health support as well?
Yeah, we have a full plethora of support around our officials, experts in physical preparation, in technical preparation, but also in not only sports psychology, but mental health and well-being as well, to ensure that the world in which they live, the pressured world in which they live, that they have the tools and the techniques to be able to cope with that, and ultimately not only go out there and perform, but also, live as normal a life as possible.
And finally, about diversity of refereeing, are you looking to get more female referees, more black referees in?
We're looking to get more of everybody in, make officiating something that is appealing to a broad range of people, both genders. We think we're doing okay in that respect. We think we are. We've been pretty successful in identifying talent from a whole range of different places that maybe previously would not have considered officiating as a route for them. Of course, we have some really good role models as well, who are talented officials, who are making their way to the top of the game, and if you see it, you can be it, and therefore more people are thinking it might be for them. And ultimately it's about talent, it's about ability, but if you've got those things, you've got the right attitude and aptitude, then there's a future for you in officiating.